What's going on, guys? Aarava here. Welcome to Pitlane Podcast, episode number 17 today for the Baku Grand Prix. Joined by usual hosts, myself, Aarav, Callum, and Tom. And, that was a less than interesting Grand Prix, we'll say the least. We thought going into it would have been quite an exciting one, with some crashes, but it didn't really come. The drivers, after practice and qualifying, sort of learned from their mistakes, and it was really GP2 where all the action of crashing happened. And F1, well, they were all just sort of very cautious on their tyres and into the first corner on lap 1, so it kind of turned to be quite a mediocre, probably less than mediocre race. Yeah, Tom's done it quite brilliantly there on the fly sketching.
Is it actually mirrored? Or is this okay?
No, I think that's okay. So what do you guys think of it then?
Well, like what Tom basically just emulated there, it was very sleepy. 51 laps of not that much really. After GP2, I watched the GP2 race this morning. Matsushita actually got a race ban for the incidents he did.
Crazy.
Safety car restarts, loads of safety cars, crashes, locking up. And F1, there was nothing. They actually showed that it kind of is the pinnacle of motorsport. They have got the best drivers because they basically proved that,
Well, I don't think anyone crashed. No one crashed. Like, there was a few little wall hits here and there, but everyone who retired and DNF'd was literally just a retirement because of failure of the car. Yeah. So, it was kind of weird.
There was just a turn 1 incident between Gutierrez and
Little Nick,
Harianto. That's it.
Yeah, little M played off, but that was nothing. Yeah, so really just very, very cautious, especially after qualifying where Hamilton mucked it up in Q3, and then in practice we saw a few crashes here and there. I guess all of them were just very on their top behaviour and tippy toes through lap 1 and stuff. So no kind of excitement that way. So we also didn't get any sort of safety car. We thought maybe we might have seen some with some retirements. Even I think I saw on Twitter some people were like, Alonso, why didn't you just continue on so we could get a safety car off you when you inevitably have an issue with your brakes? But we got nothing. So this is how the results ended up. I'll just go through. So if you haven't seen it yet, then look away now.
Spoiler alert!
It was on Channel 4 Live anyway. So Nico Rosberg won the Grand Prix by basically 17 seconds, rounding up to Sebastian Vettel in second. Sergio Perez, a fantastic third place there. Another podium for him. Raikkonen in fourth place. Hamilton makes it back up to fifth after starting 10th place in qualifying. Bottas sixth. Ricciardo and Max Verstappen 7th and 8th, falling down the order from the start. Hulkenberg 9th place. Massa rounds out the points in 10th. And then we got Jensen Button just in 11th. Nasser 12th. Grosjean 13th, and then we got a whole lot of other people. Magnussen, Palmer, Gutierrez, Ericsson, and Harianto all finishing, but one lap behind for most of them. Harianto 2 laps, and then Alonso, Verline, Sainz, and Kvyat were your retirements. So
where do you start? Because there isn't a very good starting point.
Let's talk about the start, the very start of the Grand Prix. Then we'll sort of just make our way through the teams, I guess. I think that this will probably be one of the races where basically we're just going to stick to a very structured format of going through each race, because that's probably the best way, because there really wasn't that much kind of, we have to talk about this straight away. So the start, I thought on Twitter, I kind of put a funny gif out saying Rosberg would bottle the start, but he got away nicely. Everyone really got away nicely. In GP2,
everyone had identical starts.
Yeah, in GP2 we saw the second row seemed to be the faster row, and they got the jump on the first row. But I guess with the rubbering in, that didn't really factor in, and everyone sort of got, as Cal said, basically the same start.
I actually thought Rosberg got the worst start out of everyone. If you watch it back, you'll see how good that Mercedes is, because the initial launch was worse. Ricciardo was actually somewhat alongside, and then the Mercedes power, that little squirt down to turn 1, just kicked in. And he literally launched ahead and then got around. So if maybe it was a Ferrari or something, maybe he could have stayed on the inside. If you see what I mean, if you watch it back, you might see what I'm saying. But
it was one drastically different start.
No,
but I see where you're coming from.
You could see it was one of those where when I first saw it, I didn't think much of it. But when I watched it back, I was like, "Geez, that Mercedes literally just shot off once it got going." Yeah. And also in terms of the start, the other Mercedes, Hamilton. He did well. He kept it out the walls, kept it out of cars. Very, very cautious, I think. I was expecting him to be quite aggressive in a way, because I thought, the Mercedes had some really good pace this weekend. So I was thinking if he cleared a couple of cars, he could have really charged today. But we'll move on to what happened to him later on. But I don't know. Well, nothing else really happened at the start.
Alonso. This is just a testament to how cautious he was being, because Alonso went right around the outside of him in turn 1. The only thing that forced him back was, I think it was Red Bull
the curb.
or someone.
I think it was the curb as well.
Yeah, the curb
running out
onto
of
the
room.
car.
Yeah.
Just nearly just squeezed him. He actually narrowly missed the wall on the outside, and that allowed Hamilton to get back. But just showing how actually cautious he was being. Obviously, when you're looking for those points and looking for the comeback, you don't want to kind of be storming in there as he might have. He doesn't want a repeat of like Spain or anything like that. So yeah, but apart from that, there weren't no major things. Tom mentioned before Gutierrez, little nick of the end plate as he basically got squeezed into the apex of the inside wall, but that was pretty much it. A very actually clean start compared to GP2, where we saw in the first race Gasly get caught up with a car behind him on top of his rear tyre. Then the second race we had crashes in the race with a safety car and things like that. Yeah, very weird, different contrast. But I guess, as Cal also said, probably maybe does point out the difference in talent between these drivers, but also I do also think just qualifying practice might have made everyone so cautious, which is probably maybe a bad thing in the end, but that's how it went.
Maybe not. It depends on who your favourite driver is.
Well, yeah.
I think it's worth pointing out that to be fair, it's one of the tracks that isn't really affected by dirty air. It's one of the newer tracks, the newest track that isn't affected by dirty air because of that stupidly long straight. It did have some. It was very weird to kind of put out because I think we're going to talk about a lot about GP2 because that was a very good setting stone. We saw a lot. I think it was. I'm not going to show. I'm not very good on GP2 knowledge, but one of the drivers did not have DRS and he was fighting for the lead. Whoever won the sprint race, he did not have DRS, and it forced them to do the defensive manoeuvres and everything. And it was very overpowered, the DRS in Formula One. We saw the Mercedes, especially the Mercedes-engined cars, fly past cars.
Even Red Bull,
the Hondas, Red Bulls,
when they had
Ferraris,
when they had the toe, they were actually not too nippy down the straight.
But it did kind of highlighted that it had overtaken him.
They're all just
so where's the problem then? Because that's the thing we can't really put a finger on because we had a fair amount of overtaking. We didn't really have a race that was affected by dirty air, but it was still a piss poor race.
It was just because all the overtakes were in a straight line. I was saying this to Tom earlier, it wasn't it was a bad Grand Prix. I don't think it's probably the worst one I've personally seen. And because we did have some overtakes, but the overtakes weren't necessarily that amazing. But there were still overtakes. I mean, there's been some Grand Prix in the past where literally nothing was going on and people were just like, so that we got to procession pretty much. But there were some overtakes, but it was just off the back straight. The camera angle off the back onto the main straight made it look like Indy cars coming off the oval corner onto the straight of an oval, and so if you think about it, it's pretty much like that. The overtakes were all just like an oval overtake, just slipstream, move to the right or left, overtake, brake, done. So yeah,
I know you both don't watch. I'm also sad now. I'm trying to think who it was, Cal, who didn't have DRS, who you mentioned before. So I've got his name.
Prima. The team Prima, I just can't put my finger on it.
I can't remember his name, yeah.
It's Gasly, and then there was the other driver, and this is how much we watch GP2.
That'll come on when you miss both races, but, I can warrant, pretty much a direct comparison when you look at Moto3 or Moto2 and MotoGP. Now, you two may have seen when me or anyone want to watch MotoGP, when the Moto3 races are on, which is the smallest bikes, we always retweet pictures where there's 9 bikes within the space of a corner. Yeah. And then the MotoGP ones are good, but it's just never the same.
This
is a similar case. At the end of the day, let's not forget the GP2 and GP3 cars are the same car. The only thing that's the difference is the engineers, but I believe the cars are actually all the same. But it's the difference that they make to them. Whereas in F1, obviously, we know the whole difference and debate of F1 and how it's all different. But I think that's just a case of it, really. At the end of the day, GP2 cars, simple aero, all cars are the same, so therefore you get very close racing. They're going to be literally on each other's gearbox every single race, every single corner. Yeah. Whereas in F1, and this is my personal point, this race today was literally a engine power track. It felt like a very 2014 race. Nothing that you could do with the aero made any difference today. You saw in the last couple of races at Canada and Monaco, and even Spain, where the aero comes into play, but you can see teams like Red Bull and Ferrari are sort of, just, right on the back of Mercedes, literally snapping at their heels. But today, it was literally 2x2 order, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Williams. It was just engine power tracking in the day. It was just nothing. Yeah. It felt like a 2014 race where nothing was going to happen because you can see even McLaren, who looked good this year, just engine power, they finished miles down. It's just
very much. It was
this highlights the problem when there's no aero, how the V6 is still somewhat of a problem for Formula One, because it's nowhere near level playing field.
Engine
Somewhat.
formula. It's just it was literally like 24. It's exactly as you said. That sense of like, yeah, this is all too familiar from like 2 years ago compared to what we've had so far this year. I guess in a way we've almost been like not spoiled because it's not been like 2012, but in a way like
teased.
In a way we've been teased with so many awesome races at the start of this season that maybe we needed one really bad dud and we might return to some action next race.
I've remembered Giovinazzi. That's who won GP2 race. I've finally remembered the Italian. But should we? Because obviously this is not a GP2.
Yeah,
podcast,
let's get back on to the
GP2.
order. So
I think we're going to have to go team by team because I can't remember any other speaking points.
Yeah, we'll go team by team
throughout the race. So Rosberg did his job.
Yeah, Vettel style
any
performance
win
from
that he's
2011.
had this season, he's just dominated. He's just done exactly what he's needed to do,
Well,
and we're probably going to have a little discussion about the whole team order radio ban thing. This is probably the best.
I think we'll say that to the end.
Or we could do it at the end. But Rosberg apparently did also have the issue that Hamilton did, but he fixed it a lot earlier than Hamilton. So that kind of points fingers. But we'll talk more about that at the end. Yeah. But solid strategy from Mercedes. Did exactly what they need to do and got the full 25 points for Rosberg. And it's just for Hamilton, damage limitation again this season.
Well, yeah, his strategy, to be fair, like
so far.
Up to that point, his strategy was working quite well. He was going to make his way up. He would have eventually got Perez had he not had the issues. So, just again, some poor luck, and as you said, once again for like probably the 5th time this season, just management of the race and just trying to see how many points he can score, just trying to close that deficit to Rosberg.
I think also, let's not forget, I think this weekend, let me start again. Last weekend, I was quite critical of Rosberg, saying that he's not going to win the World Championship because at the end of the day, Hamilton, on his day, has just got his number. I think today was a case of Rosberg did what he had to do, but let's not forget, Hamilton didn't really have a problem this weekend. Rosberg had the exact same problem in the race. The only thing is Rosberg managed it better, but Hamilton was the one who made the mistake in qualifying by hitting the wall.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get to with this is Rosberg was never faster than him. I think it's just a case of the only way Rosberg's going to get his championship is if Hamilton keeps making these same mistakes, which he seems to be doing a lot this season. I know he's had problems, but he seems to be making mistakes as well. So it's a funny one. I think over the whole weekend, both cars were the same. They had the same problem in the race. They were perfectly fine through qualifying and practice, but Hamilton crucially made that mistake in qualifying. That was literally it, and then he couldn't fix the problem in the race.
The only two problems that Mercedes had was Rosberg's engine or something trouble in FP2, and then Hamilton breaking his right front in qualifying 3, and then obviously the pair of them having the issues in the race. But I don't know, it's just kind of more of the Mercedes kind of not exposed as such, but just kind of being pulled apart by instead of the other teams, because obviously Mercedes were untouchable this weekend. You've got to say that
in terms of pace, yeah.
But it's almost a track. I don't know. Maybe the track kind of pulled them apart again. Yeah. It's just more things that are pulling Mercedes apart this season. The past couple of races, it's been Ferrari, it's been Red Bull, it's been Williams, it's been almost Force India this race. If you could argue that, just the fact that Perez was just always in front of Hamilton. But it's just again like Mercedes are just being pulled apart by just things, and it's kind of removing their bulletproof. It's almost like, I don't know, it's skill almost. It's not
in pre-season,
it's hard to point.
Yeah, like pre-season, we thought they were going to be bulletproof. They came out of the blocks, and then now I think this is obviously in Spain it wasn't the same issue that Rosberg had because Rosberg just put the switch wrong. So I don't actually. This is a very weird issue to have where the car gets into a wrong setting with the electrical deployment and derates itself, which is kind of weird because in Spain it was Rosberg. They confirmed that Rosberg somehow forgot to put the switch back to the correct setting at the beginning, but I don't know how the car itself would switch itself into a wrong setting. But yeah, and as both of you said, Rosberg managed it. Lauda confirmed. I don't know. Obviously, Lauda doesn't speak for Mercedes themselves, so we could be totally wrong here. But we're going off what the reports are saying. That Lauda did confirm to Sky that Rosberg had the same issue. That could be completely wrong.
Well,
but talking away from Rosberg, apparently he fixed it. But even if he didn't have an issue, Hamilton had the derating issues. Said to the team, I'm just going to try everything. And I think that, I think it could have been better maybe for him just to be like, okay, I'll just hold station. It could have maybe fixed itself or something. I don't know. He sort of seemed to fix it and then just settled for 5th maybe, or maybe had another issue. I don't know.
Apparently it came back, didn't it? It came back.
Yeah, it came back for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like Tom said, Rosberg's just capitalising all these mistakes. And yeah, I mean, Rosberg, at least he's doing the job when Hamilton makes a mistake, because it could get to a point where, you never know that Rosberg can make a stupid error and then he'd be kicking himself, not for getting the full 25 points when he knows then Hamilton's got an issue. So at least there's some praise for that. But yeah, he really wasn't challenged this weekend. Mercedes were on top and just showed the engine track there. And you saw that with Perez going on to Force India. Perez in third place, brilliant podium for him, and Force India, even though Hulkenberg had the issue in qualifying because he wasn't told to continue his lap, and he wasn't told about how many laps he had of fuel and stuff. Both Force Indias looked pretty strong that entire weekend. Obviously, Hulkenberg down in ninth, but that was mainly due just to the strategy he had to do.
Should have been way further up there. Do you know when you hear them sort of radio conversations in qualifying
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like, oh, if I stop, it's like, oh my God, how can you make such a bad issue?
Yeah.
Like, if that's not something that should be a problem. You've ran out of fuel. Like, that's just a communication error there. But Perez, 2 podiums on the trot.
Absolutely great.
Absolutely insane stuff from him. And it's not like it's only just in the race he's shone through. He's shone through. I can't speak.
It's not on the
he's
trot,
shone
exactly.
through.
Yeah,
it's not on the trot,
exactly.
no. 2 in the last 3, because we had Canada in between.
Oh, yeah, that's just...
Two podiums in a short space of time.
That's what I mean.
Good stuff.
But
good stuff.
He's just shown it all weekend.
Yeah.
Even qualifying 3 proved it. He beat Ferrari, beat Red Bull, he beat Williams to that front row, albeit with the issue. It's just such a shame that he did have the practice 3 crash. Where would he have been then?
I still find it disappointing how Hulkenberg hasn't got to a big team, but it's fascinating to see how it's all shifted. Hulkenberg was the one who was tipped for a big team for quite a few years now, and you can just feel it's shifting a bit. If you look at Perez, used to be a Ferrari Academy driver, then got released, and now apparently Ferrari is sniffing around him again. His performances this season have been very impressive. Force India, they just keep resurging, second year in a row where they haven't really done much, but they just seem to find some form mid-season.
Yeah, we said this at the beginning.
Then you'll see later on, towards the end of the season, they'll probably drop off. But it's this point now where they get the points that they need. That guarantees them a good place. And I think they're well on course for 5th place behind the usual top 4. But I wanted to say quickly before, obviously, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think De Resta, I don't rate him as a commentator. He's very boring, but he does have a very sensible head on him. This weekend he did say, if there was ever a track built for Mercedes, this was the one. You could see it was unbelievable. Like, I'm talking from the actual works team themselves. It was unbelievable. And also he said about Lauda, about the engine problem, about the derating. I was looking at the gap because me being a Ferrari fan, I was always keeping a close eye on the gaps. And there was a point where in like 3 laps, Vettel went from 20 seconds to 14 seconds behind. And then I tweeted out, Vettel was catching Rosberg, and then the very next lap, Rosberg banged in a fastest lap. So maybe that's when he fixed the issue. Because he lost a lot of time in a couple of laps. But you could definitely see this track was a Mercedes track. And also, like I said about Force India, Perez is really just... I'm very impressed. I've said it before, I think Ferrari going to be sniffing around him. If he keeps this up for the rest of the season, could be worth a shout.
Yeah,
maybe. I think that's just the shit. That's the thing with Force India. It's just the fact that, are they going to drop off? Because they're having such a good mid-season. It's like, are they going to drop off? When are they going to drop off?
Especially because of 2017.
Can they actually... Exactly.
Oh, exactly.
Because they can't focus on this season. And even if they have a really, really good 2016... that's just going to hamper 2017. So we can't obviously get too ahead of ourselves, but it does outline the drivers. It does outline the fact that both Hulkenberg and Perez are doing a stellar job at Force India. They've got themselves 2 basically perfect drivers for that team. Not too young that have got no experience, but not too old that they're kind of just losing their talent. They've got the absolute sweet spot there.
They're in the sweet spot, yeah.
I think it's a perfect mix, because also at the same time, when you saw, obviously Perez has grown as a driver and matured, but when we saw when he went to McLaren, there maybe was a sense of pressure. So I think it's also a perfect mixture in that sense, where Force India there's not going to be any pressure with Force India for Nico and Sergio to perform like to the max and get the podium every single time. So it's a genuine, like, they have a belief and like a good kind of team morale behind them that, they're just trying their best to try and mix it with the big guns, and it'll be brilliant. Like, I think I saw a brilliant tweet, I think on like Saturday, I think it was, after Perez got the brilliant qualifying. Like, it's not a case of maybe when's Perez and Hulkenberg going to get a good seat in a good team, when are Force India going to hopefully break through and actually stick up there as a good team. That would be fantastic to eventually see. Obviously it's very difficult with the structure in Formula 1, but it's that sort of case. It's like, they get so close to getting right up there, and then they fall off with budget and developing for next year. It's just a shame, really. Just a shame.
The problem with Force India is I don't think they'll ever break out. They're just financially they're such a limited team. They're like, if you compare them to Williams, McLaren, Toro, so they've all got structure and financial backing. Force India are in there, and I think they'll stay around. But the problem I think with Force India is, one day, say if Perez went to Ferrari, that would hamper them considerably because Perez brings in a lot of money. Luckily enough, he's got a lot of skill to back it up.
Yep.
And same thing is, you've got to think if Perez leaves, if they don't bring in someone with a decent amount of money behind him, then you could see Hulkenberg leave as well, and that could start the downward spiral for them. So I think Force India are also very dependent on their drivers. I've got to say though, I really rate Hulkenberg personally myself, and he proved that last year. I mean, he won Le Mans in his first time asking, and you can see he's still there. I think it's just a case of Hulkenberg's doing alright, but Perez is just in such good form at the moment. It's just unbelievable form. I think Hulkenberg's like a year or two older than him as well, but
it just adds to the Hulkenberg bad luck, though. Like we spoke about in the last podcast.
Yeah, again.
It's more bad luck again. It's just the fact that it's just a slight team issue, and he finds himself in such a low qualifying position, and then his Perez qualifying in second.
There's a certain something about a certain prime around the age of 28, because if you look at it, Hulkenberg now I think is 28, Perez is 26, I believe. If you go back 2 years, Hulkenberg was the one who was always being talked about as going to Ferrari, and that sort of wavered off, and now Perez is coming into that sweet spot. Also around that age, Vettel was winning his fourth world championship. Seems to be like a prime age for F1 drivers, but I definitely think, I thought Hulkenberg was unlucky today, because if you look at Perez, he had, pretty much a clear track ahead of him today, whereas Hulkenberg had to do all the work because of all the qualifying mistakes yesterday. But I would like to see Hulkenberg get a podium this season, because I think he's never had a podium yet in F1, which is unbelievable.
So it's
very unfortunate, because even in 2013 with the Sauber, where he got so many fourth places, I think I would really like to see Hulkenberg get a podium, because it's a shame. I think it's unlucky for him, like we've been saying before.
Yeah. So we did mention Ferrari there, so there wasn't too much to talk about Ferrari's race. Nothing really special.
Better than expected, I would say. Better than expected for me as a Ferrari fan.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't see on paper, almost a double podium, almost. That was not expected at all, especially after qualifying, especially after Friday running. I honestly thought Ferrari were behind Red Bull and Force India on Friday.
Vettel was very disappointed to see him behind Force India in qualifying. Like, he said that he was very disappointed to see Ferrari behind, but I think just overall strategy, just general experience from Ferrari, and they had some decent pace that just sorted them out. I thought Raikkonen kind of did deserve the podium.
He did a good race.
Don't take anything away from Checo, but he was so unlucky with that penalty. I thought that was very, very harsh. It reminded me of Massa in 2013 at Brazil. The pit lane entry, it's very, very wish-washy. It's very...
Yeah.
There's no defined... I know he's trying to get a slipstream, but does he really need to be penalised for going in a straight line, just going over a white line? If there's going to be some sort of issue, put a wall there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, literally, just like a temporary barrier or something. Yeah.
It's very unfortunate, but I think they can be very happy. It was probably not the best, but probably some of the best points they could have got that weekend.
And Vettel made a good decision.
The win was completely out of it.
I think Vettel made a good decision.
Aarava, you pointed that out, didn't you?
Yeah, because his team were going to be pitting, what was it, lap 10. He was like, are you sure?
Yeah,
and, eventually, I think they might have had a private conversation that we didn't hear on the team radio, but eventually Vettel just kept sticking out, and that was the correct decision for him, because that worked out really well for him. Especially towards the end, he had good, okay tyres, so he could even try and catch Rosberg if he was having an issue. So I think that was a good call from him. But obviously, as we said, Mercedes on the day.
At the time. Gone.
As we said, Mercedes on the day, just too quick for them.
Yeah, I did tweet at the time. I think, Crofty made a big thing about it, and I do agree. It's that is one of those things where you look at it and think, is that where Ferrari have really been going wrong all season? Vettel had to really step in there for the first time and say, actually, no, I'm not going to pit, because I feel alright, and I'm just going to stick it out. I feel okay, I've got the gap, I've got a good pace in the tyres still. And it turned out to be the right decision. You just wonder if Kimi had done the same thing.
Yeah.
Could he have been more in the race?
That's a world champion thinker right there.
Yeah.
I think he actually stands up to his team a little bit, and I think we see that a lot with world champions, that they kind of just go, whoa, hold on a minute, let's have another think about this, because, and well, it's proved it, hasn't it? Ferrari have made quite a few strategy decisions that have been wrong. Obviously, in Canada, they had happened
to be crucial as well.
And they've all been crucial. They've all cost him a race win. So, and then the one time that they get it right, they only get second.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shame, really, the way that that's timed. But you can't take away from Ferrari. Just a solid weekend. Could have got potentially a few more points, 3 more, if they could have got on the podium, double podium. But I don't think Raikkonen would have been too. I think he's probably more annoyed about his penalty, because he just let Perez through quite easily at the end. I don't think he really.
Well, I think he knew, didn't he? He had no chance. He had old tyres, had a penalty as well. It's like, I'd much rather just bring it home fourth than crash or something. But what was I going to say? I did expect more from Ferrari this weekend, though. Considering the track, a power track, you'd think with the Ferrari engine this season, they would have been a bit closer to Mercedes. Mercedes were probably easy second and faster than them, which is consider like straight off of Canada, what we saw there, which was a power track as well. A bit of an interesting one, but.
But to say that Ferrari have had this engine upgrade as well, this turbo
exactly.
upgrade.
That's my point.
And they said that they're pretty much on point with Mercedes, so where's the problem there?
Maybe it's through the corners, I don't know. Maybe through the corners it didn't feel great.
Maybe Mercedes, because obviously we obviously big up Red Bull's chassis, but you can't take it away from
Mercedes have a very strong chassis.
You still can't take it away from that, hence why they've got so many world championships now. But I'm actually trying to think of who the next team is, because I can't remember.
Well, Valtteri Bottas sixth place.
I was going to say Red Bull, because they got
they were very low today.
Well, let's talk about Williams, because Bottas is sixth there. So Williams, pretty quiet race. Bottas and Massa were 2x2 for quite a lot of the race at the beginning. Like Tom said, everyone was quite 2x2 at the start. But yeah, to be honest, I didn't really see much of them after the first stint. Both Williams
I feel like they declined as the weekend went on. They started off very strong.
Never started off high. Massa had a very bad weekend. He was struggling all through practice, qualifying.
You both know where I stand with Massa. So.
Yeah, but Bottas, he was just enjoying slicing his way through the field with Hamilton behind him. Obviously, because Bottas got screwed around in the qualifying with the whole Verstappen incident. Not taking any sides of that, because I thought that was just the most pathetic thing. Two drivers fighting over the same piece of tarmac in qualifying. Then but Massa was never really there. Just kind of the best, really. And I suppose 5th place, beating the Red Bulls, that's not that bad, I suppose. Obviously, Red Bull had a very, very bad weekend, and we'll probably talk about them in a minute. But Williams just kind of there again, like in Canada, but obviously they managed to pick up the podium. Just kind of just there. Just there. Obviously, the track did help them an awful lot.
Logic would dictate you would have expected them to be faster than Force India on paper. Force India have other ideas. At the end of the day, Williams were the team that in the V6 era have been a pretty good team. And on paper, I mean, their chassis looks better than Force India, but whatever Force India had this weekend.
Force India are almost ahead of Williams.
No, I'd say they are. I think if Force India keep this up, they could actually get fourth from the constructors and beat Williams, because
that would be huge.
I think
that'd be awesome.
At the end of the day, even though Perez is in a good run of form, Hulkenberg is still very consistent. Whereas I feel like Massa started strong, now he's dropping off, and Bottas is sort of just carrying the team, because I think Massa finished 6th or 7th in Canada. Sorry, no, I'm saying in Canada though. And Bottas got a podium. Oh yeah, that's true. It's like 2 races in a row where there's only been one car who's really been bringing in the points. So if Force India just get double points finishes all the time, and they get a couple more podiums,
Yeah. So moving on to Red Bull. So pretty poor weekend for them, just going backwards. Ricciardo was so optimistic at the beginning, and then you would have expected it, to be honest, at this track. I was very surprised at the qualifying of Ricciardo. I didn't expect them to be up there through that the entire weekend, and that just confirmed it. You would have thought it would have happened. So they were just falling backwards. There were some moments where they were trying to overtake people, but that was just with DRS and a bit of tow. But as soon as a faster car came up behind them, pretty much no chance.
Well, Verstappen was very far off, obviously, because he qualified quite badly. Then the start was reasonably good for Verstappen and Ricciardo. They both were there. And then the way the strategy worked out, when they went to super soft, softs, and mediums.
Well, they just ran out of tyres, didn't they? They just hit the cliff.
Could not switch. And it's quite random, though, because normally Red Bull are that team that can switch the tyres on. So why did they have such a problem at Baku? It was a very, very strange weekend for them, and I think it's one to write off. Because if anything, if you go from Monaco to Canada to Baku, it's just been a huge step back. They've just slumped and slumped and slumped. And now they're going to hope in Austria, which
is a power track.
Is that going to really help them? I think they're going to pray for hopefully some
rain.
I mean, it might suit them a bit. The final sector at least might be high speed corners, but they're going to need a bit of take a bit of air off the car and hope for a bit more speed. But I wanted to say, we talk about Hulkenberg being unlucky, but Ricciardo's been right up there this season as well. Also Hamilton. I mean, Ricciardo, 2 wins that he could have had. He's out-qualified his teammate every single race. But you can see now, just as he's starting to get motivated to really try and win a race, the Red Bulls just cliff dive. It's literally...
he hasn't got the equipment for it.
And I just want to touch up also that because he's apparently renewed / finishing his contract with Red Bull until 2018, obviously that puts the Ferrari rumour to bed. So he's going to be at the team for a while now. So
2 more years, definitely until the end of 2018.
I don't know what could happen.
So I don't know, Ricciardo.
He's been unlucky, very unlucky.
It's a weird one with Ricciardo, but I don't know. It's a very strange part of the season for them because they come off the back of Monaco where they shot themselves in their own foot. They obviously lost the win. Then Canada, they didn't really expect much. Baku, it's got even worse. Austria, what's going to happen really there? It's a very strange team, Red Bull, at the minute. They're all over the place, and that's the weird thing about this not the top midfield, or the very top at least, because you can have Mercedes on their own, but then the Williams, Red Bull and Ferrari keep changing positions every single race.
Oh, Force India in there now.
And then now you add Force India to the mix, and then whenever Toro Rosso think like they want to have a good day, it's very it's very mix and matched, and we can't really predict anything.
This weekend proved that lap Ricciardo pulled out the bag yesterday was an absolute worldie considering Red Bull's pace. I think that lap didn't get enough credit. That was a very good lap to say.
Albeit,
I mean, if you look at him this weekend,
he had the exact same lap time as Vettel, didn't he?
Yeah,
exact same lap time because he set it earlier. He got obviously third, but he was inherited to second because of Perez's penalty. But yeah, that was an insane lap. And maybe track conditions might have stepped in, but then again, apart from Rosberg, everyone else tried to set better lap times. But that proved that Ricciardo has still got some roaring talent inside him, that he managed to get a front row start. And then it's very rare to see a front row starter finish. Whereabouts did he finish?
Seventh.
Seventh. So that is very, very surprising. But
that rounds out the top 10. And to be honest, not much to say about any of the other teams. They didn't really get much camera time. There wasn't really much going on in the race. They're all
parked
behind its science train. The only thing to talk about was Manor, as Cal just said, but they ended up with retirement, so...
Yeah.
I was going to mention McLaren, to be honest, personally, me. I thought, let's look at it on paper here. I've got my little fact book with me this weekend. I've been taking some notes in my head, but they looked really good this weekend, and the stat that really sort of shocked me yesterday, sorry. Jenson Button getting knocked out yesterday in Q1 was the first time this season that's happened, which is, it definitely, you can see that McLaren really are progressing. When I heard that, when you think, well, it's actually true, they've never been knocked out in Q1 before.
Yeah.
Because when you think about last season, that's quite a good stat for them. And then if you look at him today, JB had some good pace right at the end there. He 11th just on the outside of points, and Alonso had a bit of a problem. But they really did sort of also, similar to Williams, fade away as the weekend went on. They looked really promising in practice. I think they had the best ever FP1 and FP2, I think they had, and then...
Well, I think it was just classic.
They just sort of faded.
I think it was just classic Honda, because they can't turn up their engine any more than they do. They turn up to practice, and that is their engine pace. Whereas qualifying comes around, race comes around, and everyone else, Mercedes especially, just turn up the wick.
Turn it up,
So that's just classic Honda, really, this season, unfortunately, and pretty much last season. Whatever they come to in practice is their pace.
I think the drivers had a bit of fun though, because I think McLaren did have quite a few on-track battles and with each other as well, and then obviously Alonso had some sort of issue that meant he had to retire. Thinking about other cars that we saw a lot, some problem with
Kvyat had an early retirement, so it was unfortunate for him.
And obviously Sainz had problems
led a train for a bit. Sauber,
Manor.
Weird.
I'm a Manor fanboy myself, but Sauber had a good shot. Nasser had a good race, 12th. I thought, a steady race for Sauber. Ericsson, 18th, I think, way down the order, but
17th, something like that. Yeah.
But Nasser had a pretty good race. You can see he got a bit of camera time at the end, putting off a couple of overtakes. But I think Sauber might get a point this season if they're lucky. If things go
They
their
need
way,
some
sort of thing. If
crashes
they
and
get
some rain.
Yeah, they need one of those races, like where they just scrape like a 9th or a 10th place.
Yeah.
But in terms of manner, I don't know about you, but in qualifying I was quite impressed. I thought that they literally just missed out on Q2. They looked
Verline,
pretty decent in qualifying.
I read that he had to back off because his lap was with yellow flags, so that was the reason why Haryanto out qualified him. Sorry to put anyone down there.
I remember seeing the lap when Haryanto did it. He had one of those massive toes down the entire straight as well.
Yeah, he had a huge toe. But Verline, he kind of held his own, didn't he? He was, he didn't stop.
Some nice battles.
It was very weird because it was always like Mano was emulating Mercedes. It's like Mercedes B team. They was just emulating their strategy they were doing with Rosberg, just staying out there. It wasn't being mugged, really. Not like in China where Haryanto got absolutely mugged when they was far up the field. It was just slowly easing down the field, but
as high as 8th at one point.
Yeah, but to be fair play to Verline. He had a cool head on him. He didn't try and launch one back up the inside or anything like that. And to be fair play to all the drivers, to be fair, because it was a very, very clean Grand Prix. To say
I don't know if anyone's a Manor fan or anything, but I looked at the strategy. For some reason, Verline did 31 laps on softs out of the 51 laps, and the remaining 20 on mediums. Bit of a dodgy strategy there, and that's why you finished like 18th. I think you finished in the end, like way down, because the second stint was just. Oh well, true. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're retired. But
you would have thought him into turn 1.
Yeah.
You would have thought
it was just basically like the smaller team maybe not being able to find a good setup for their brakes and just being very harsh on them. And he's retired. It was parking up, wasn't it? Turn 1.
It was very strange with Toro Rosso how they both had suspension failures. Not failures, but issues that forced the pair.
You could see this weekend was the first one where you could really see that their 2015 engine was really starting to affect them a bit. That you could see they were down on power, probably even like down as low as Renault. You could say, I think it was Alonso or Button who literally flew past Magnussen on the straight, and that's McLaren Honda. So they definitely, you could see they struggled a lot all weekend. To be fair, I think Kvyat had a pretty impressive weekend up until the race when he retired, unfortunately. But very unlucky. Like I think Sainz had a grid penalty, didn't he, as well? Just a bit of a
and Magnussen, he's got to have a word on Magnussen. He's having so much bad luck this season as well. There's been a lot of unlucky drivers because he had another pit lane start, had another more issues. He's been very unlucky, K-Mag. I think we've got like a lot of unlucky drivers.
Both Renault drivers.
Julian Palmer, then again, he hasn't impressed, but he hasn't been given given him the benefit of the doubt. He has had a lot of bad luck. But it was nice to see both British drivers going at it for 13th place.
Yeah.
That was all right.
That's all rounds out the entire grid. So
and Haas, nowhere.
Haas, lots of lockups. They like to lock. To be fair play to Grosjean. Because he had a very, very good qualifying. He qualified in P11, and that's what Gene Haas asked for. So because I watched him in his interview, and he was very, very happy that he got P11. And then obviously every team got on top of the braking issues, but like I'm surprised not all of Haas's tyres were 50 pence pieces after the amount of times they had brake issues. But there's fair play to Grosjean because he was like, right, I'm coming back in the pits, we're fixing this issue, and we're going back out and we're qualifying in P11. And he did it, and that just showed that I thought it was really good from Grosjean, showing his little fighting spirit in that team and trying to keep them going because they've had a very, very tough couple of races after the start of the season. So, but I thought it was really good as well to see 8 cars all in the space of one camera shot when those all behind
that was
Sainz.
Behind the Sainz train.
That was really interesting. I thought that was really nice to see. It was just.
That was a good battle.
I know people hate the fact that it's interesting because we've got lots of battles down the field and we don't have a battle
up front
for first.
Where it matters.
But, we take what we're given.
It's still kind of cool just to see so many cars in one shot.
But I've got this is going to be a very hard one because I can't actually think of many people. Driver of the day.
Perez, hands down.
I'm going to say Rosberg or Perez. I'd say
Perez. I don't think it's an argument, to be honest. I think he just there's no other driver I don't think that really outshone where they were going to finish.
Yeah.
I was going to throw Raikkonen's name in the hat as well. I thought he had a good race considering how old his tyres were.
Carries. But I think definitely Perez.
I agree, Perez as well. Yeah, Perez, good race.
So
honorable mention the Verline as well, my boy. He had a good race.
yeah, had a good race
So I
till
was
retired.
Yeah.
So
I think overall for Baku,
wraps out. Yeah, like just a
5
little
out of
meh.
10. 5 out of 10. Just great.
To be honest, I'm
pass.
quite
Feels
surprised we talked about Baku for 40 minutes. So that's surprising.
you guys wonder where we get all this stuff from. We somehow managed to galvanise something from these Grand Prix.
I don't know. Yeah, we also
we
make a
haven't
lot.
got a great
We also
track
make a lot of
coming next either.
speculations.
So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do you want to very quickly talk about the radio ban, or are we just going to end
I
it?
feel
Or
like
are
we'll
we gonna
briefly
wait for
mention
that?
it, but I don't want to make this too long because
Well,
I feel
to
like
be
this could be
fair-
like a podcast on its own.
we've got like 2 weeks, haven't we? So we can talk in the next
Yes, I think we can talk about the
Especially
radio
if there's
stuff.
no
I
news,
think you
which
know
has been
what,
the
just
case.
to give it plenty of time because I think it is quite a big topic. We'll save it for next podcast because I think I want to give us like a good 30
agree,
minutes
yeah.
on that because I think that would be quite a big topic to discuss.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to hold it here. So that's been the podcast of the Baku Grand Prix. Next time, as Tom said, we do have a break. So we'll discuss the brake issue, not the brake issue, the
Summary.
derating issue there. That's Tom's summary. So if you have enjoyed it anyway, enjoy the podcast, hit that like button. Let us know what you thought in the comments below on your thoughts of Baku, the first outing in Formula 1. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for this podcast. And if you like what these two had to say, then follow them on Twitter and subscribe. Obviously, as Tom just noted, our Twitters are above our little pictures. So yeah, that's been it, guys. We'll see you guys for the next one, which will be a midweek podcast, or not midweek, mid-Grand Prix. So we'll talk about the issues, any news that comes up. And once again, we all kind of flop over right at the end. Goodbye.